Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode of TLJT Talks. Today we have with us Mr. Abhishek Chauhan. Abhishek is currently pursuing his LLM from Pennsylvania State University. Before that, he has done his bachelor's from Rajiv Gandhi National University of Law in Punjab, and he has appeared for several matters in Supreme Court of India. He is also a student member of Civil Rights Appellate Clinic and is currently working on a case before the Supreme Court of United States. So thank you, Abhishek, for making time for us, and welcome to TLJT Talks.
Thank you so much, Aryaman, for giving me this opportunity on talking about such an important topic. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So since this is an inaugural episode, so we'll talk about general aspects of law and technology. Starting with the question, how do you think law and tech are linked with each other?
Aryaman, I think the link between law and technology basically lies in the concept of privacy, which means that if I am using any kind of technology, then my user data should not be shared with any other person, organization, or any other person without my express consent for the same. But is that happening these days is a separate question. For example, I have many times noticed that when I talk about certain products with my phone in my hand or in my pocket, then after a few minutes, I see advertisements of the same products while I use my social media. Hence, there is a question that we have the right to privacy, but effectually, is that being enforced? I think that remains a distant dream, because when I cannot control what to different interest groups, we have achieved right to privacy in a substantial sense. So again, making my point, law and technology are indeed related to each other through the concept of privacy.
Right. But you talked about the sharing thing. In the current times, we can see that in majority of platforms, we just continue with Google. So do you think it is possible to exercise absolute right of privacy for any platform?
Yes, Aryaman, the point which I was making is that, for example, if I'm using Apple and I say, hello, Siri, so immediately my iPhone starts and Siri starts talking to me. That means that my phone is always listening to my conversation. So what I'm trying to say is that I do not even have the power to turn off my microphone so that it cannot listen to what I'm speaking. Even if I do that, still I'm getting these advertisements, which basically means that there is someone who is snooping into what I'm saying. This raises a big question.
Right, correct. So we move on to our next question. I'd like to ask, what is your say on driverless cars, and what do you think about the liability that rises in case of accidents? Because we are seeing that Tesla is coming up with autopilot mode, and many more companies are eyeing to make auto-driven cars. So what is your say on that?
Firstly, talking about driverless cars, Tesla, I have seen Teslas in the US working very well. But first of all, I will just like to raise the point that do we need driverless cars in India? Then I will come to the privacy concerns. I know someone who owns an automobile business in the United States. And just to tell you, he pays $1,200 per week to his driver. So driverless cars helps in that way because it reduces the cost of getting a driver. If you have a driverless car, you don't need to get a driver, and hence your expenses reduce. But if we see India, then I think you can get a driver for not even $300 for a whole month, which is relatively exploitation, and which is, even after exploitation, we have so much of unemployment. So firstly, I would like to raise the point that we do not need driverless cars in India. Since there is a lot of unemployment, it is better to give employment to someone and make his life a bit better. Now coming to the privacy concerns and who will be liable. And also coming to the point that if you see United States, where Tesla essentially operates, then everyone follows traffic rules. There is less population density. Therefore, these kinds of technologies, they can easily work here. But if we see India, then there is not that much respect of traffic rules. Furthermore, the bigger problem is that lot of population density. Hence, I think that if driverless cars comes to India, there is a lot of scope of accidents. And then the question arises that who is liable for that accident? Now, there are two people who can be liable. First, who is sitting on the driver's seat. He may not be driving the car, but he is just sitting there. and he operates the autopilot mode, he can be liable. Secondly, the company, any company who makes the driverless car, who makes the code of the driverless car, who makes the AI code, that company can be liable. Now, let me tell you one thing. If you sit in a Tesla and if you start the autopilot mode, it gives you kind of a signal that you will, that which I said, it's kind of a long wording, but I'll just make it short. It essentially says that you are responsible for the hardware and software, whatever goes on, and you should not use the autopilot mode in certain places. For example, if it is crowded or if the highway has too many turns. So essentially, I think that the company who manufactures the driverless car should be liable, because essentially they are making profit, so they should also be liable if anything wrong happens. But when you click accept on that contract, on that contract, and you accept to use the autopilot mode of the driverless cars, and you accept to take responsibility of that, then I think that the person who is sitting on the driver's seat will also have liability. And also, to make one thing clear, Tesla also says that uh, this is what I've heard, that whenever you sit on driverless car, keep your hands on the steering wheel always. So that is the thing, that I think that any driverless car maker should be liable, but given that contract which the person signs, it's very difficult to prove liability, and in the end, the person who is sitting on the driver's seat will have to take liability for anything wrong which that happens.
Right, right, right. So I like the point where you pointed out that in India, if there is a need of driverless cars or not, you brought in the societal aspect, also the humanitarian aspect, also that there is need of employment and all that. And also, I think that in India, people are lacking road sense. People just take turns from anywhere. People come from anywhere. So, and you talked about the roads in US. There's so much difference in the road conditions of US and that of India. It's like full of uh, the roads are not that good quality as they're in US. So yeah, I agree with you. But when you spoke about the liability clause, so does just accepting the terms and conditions that yeah, whatever happens, the driver is liable. It makes the company absolutely, does it like does it exempt it from any kind of liability?
It should not exempt it from any kind of liability. I am saying that that is basically a click wrap contract, but the company will always have an argument before the court. And let me make one thing clear, that if you go and buy a driverless car, they might come up with a legal document which you sign before taking the car. So even if you exclude that provision of accepting to that travel, because that is basically caution. What if they come up with an agreement, with a contract, and you have to sign it before buying the car, and they say that they don't have any liability? This has to be decided by the court. I think the company should be liable, but if you sign the contract, you are obviously bound by it.
Right, right, right. Makes a lot of sense, right? So now we move on to our next question, that is about Pegasus spyware scandal that recently happened. So we saw that the phones of many of the politicians and businessmen were tapped. So what is your say on that? And do you think scrutinizing the technology, it hampers the right to privacy of people?
Definitely, Aryaman. If we see Pegasus, then the firm which created it clearly says that this spyware is sold exclusively to governments around the world to combat terrorism and serious crimes. Now, what has happened in India is that it has been misused, and it has been alleged that it is misused, and it is said that it is. I was reading an Al Jazeera report which says that it is used against Ashok Lavasa, who is the former election commissioner of India, and 40 Indian journalists and many other people. So I think this raises an issue of national importance, because if you are snooping into someone's private data, you can use that to blackmail him later on, and that affects the essential pillar of democracy, because these people, they are basically holding key positions in our country, and if they are blackmailed, then the base of the entire democracy is at threat. I think before commenting upon whether this is true, whether this is false, no doubt, there is no doubt, there can be no second doubt on the thought that this case deserves an independent SIT by the Supreme Court of India. I would like to congratulate Chief Justice Ramanna, who has issued notice in this petition. And the West Bengal government has also formed an inquiry commission led by former Supreme Court Judge Justice Madan B. Lokur, but to investigate the matter. Now, this inquiry commission by the West Bengal government has not been stayed, but the Supreme Court SIT case is still going on, and I think. Given the fact that the Chief Justice is himself entertaining this petition, I think there is a lot of chance that we will see an independent SIT into this. But saying whether this happened, whether this does not happen, we can make a better statement after we know the report of that SIT.
Right.
Because we should not blindly accept whatever the press is telling us until and unless we find other reasons, we find other inquiry, other reports, other facts which support that.
Right. So the question that was carried with this one was whether it's scrutinizing this, it affects the right to privacy of these individuals, because I understand that people who are running the government, they are also humans. They'll be having their own mindset. So maybe they are using it to, suppress the people who oppose them to, as you said, Ashok Lavansa was snooped in. So he was the election commission, maybe to affect what decision he is going to make. So do you think the right to privacy of these elites, it was compromised?
Yeah, if this has happened,
right,
then it was definitely compromised. Right. And not even these person, if you see Pegasus, then it is to be used against terrorists. One thing is very clear, that these people, Ashok Lavasa, or I have Al Jazeera report says 40 other journalists, they are not terrorists. So if they have been snooped into, then definitely there is a breach of right to privacy. But whether they have been snooped into, what happened, what didn't happen, that has to be decided by the independent inquiry, which is being done by Justice Lokur. And I think the Supreme Court should also start with some kind of an independent SIT into this.
So now coming from the elites to commoners, what is your say on the recent WhatsApp privacy policies that changed? And do you think, in the name of national security, in the name of maintaining the integrity of the country, the government or the authority, it's misusing its IT rights, and it's affecting people's right to privacy?
Aryaman, coming to the WhatsApp privacy policy, I was reading a petition which was filed by Dr. Seema Singh before the Delhi High Court, which says that according to the new privacy policy, WhatsApp can share information with third-party services providers and other Facebook companies. Now, if this is true, then no doubt, if I do not want my data on WhatsApp to go to Facebook or any other country, then I don't think that one should be allowed, any WhatsApp or any other country, any other company should be allowed to do that. But now the question again comes to the contractual aspect of it. They are not doing this randomly. They are not doing this without your permission. They are asking for your permission and telling you that we will share this information with Facebook. Do you want that? If you want that, you please click agree to all this. If you don't want that, then you are welcome to leave WhatsApp. Now, this again raises, I think that if you go to this, there is a matter pending before the Delhi High Court on this. Let's see what the court decides. But the solution to which I propose to this problem is that government should come up with a data protection authority like the European Union has. Now, European Union recently imposed heavy fines on WhatsApp and also on Amazon for their privacy policies and privacy threats. If you come up with an independent independent body to regulate privacy, and if it imposes fine on any of these companies for violating privacy norms, it should give them an option that either you pay this fine or you improve your privacy policy. Then I think the burden will shift. Because if you see right now, it is completely a contract. If you want to go forward, you sign the contract. If you don't want to go forward, you can always leave that app. But if you impose a fine on that company, then the burden will shift on that company. But now the fine cannot be imposed by any normal person. It can only be done by an authority. If you come up with an independent authority to monitor privacy rights, it imposes a fine. And just to make one thing very clear, WhatsApp was fined heavily by the European Union, and even Amazon was fined. To tell you, under Europe, they have this law which is called GDPR, and fines for violating privacy are very high, and the maximum can be 20 million euros or even 4% of the global revenue, whichever is higher. So if we come up with such kind of a law, then only I think that we will able to we can manage this privacy issues. Otherwise, it is completely a contract, and so if you want to go forward, you go forward. If you don't want to go forward, you can leave WhatsApp. Amazon was fined 746 million euros, and WhatsApp was ordered to pay 225 million euros because they were not transparent about how they handled personal information. So I think we should come up with such a kind of a procedure, and then give them an option that either you pay this much fine or you improve your privacy policy. Then we will have a higher pedestal, and that is the only way we can come to a solution.
Right. So you spoke about the GDPR also and other privacy laws that are needed to be enacted. But my concern here is that WhatsApp and Amazon, these are the world leaders. These are the corporates that lead the world. But if we generally read terms of use of any platform, like any platform we pick and we open their terms of use or privacy policy, it says that they'll share our data or information with a third party to provide us with the best services. So why only is WhatsApp and Amazon is being targeted? You would say that there is a need of government to step in and come up with something like GDPR. It will generalize the punishment thing and all, but in India, since now this is an independent contract, as you said, between a person who is using the app and the company. So my concern here is, do you think that WhatsApp and Amazon, or WhatsApp specifically for India, it's being targeted only because it's a world leader and other companies are exempted because they don't have that much of limelight?
Definitely, Aryaman, this happens anywhere. Just to give you an example, whenever I read news, then it says that XYZ celebrities chat leaked, and it says that he was buying this, doing this. So if XYZ celebrities chats are being leaked, that doesn't mean that my chat is safe. That is coming in the news because that is a source of gossip. He is a famous person, and we are not that much famous that will create gossip. But that doesn't mean that my WhatsApp or my messenger or my chat is safe, and only people who are at the highest rungs of anywhere, their chat is compromised. So the point which I'm making is that this independent authority, which I'm talking about, this should equally monitor every company and every authority, regardless whether it is WhatsApp or it is Facebook or any other company or even a small company. Any company which asks for my data should be monitored by this authority. And if, like in Europe, if they are not following proper privacy standards, they should be fined without a doubt.
Right. So since we are talking about social media, I'd like to ask your viewpoint on defamation posts that are made on social media.
Aryaman, defamation posts, which are, first of all, it is very difficult to prove what is defamation. Now, if we give authority to someone to, for example, if we give authority to any particular organization that you scrutinify and you do scrutiny and tell what is defamation, what is criticism, and then you censor all the defamatory posts, I think it will be like giving a lot of power to an authority, which under the garb of defamation, they can clearly suppress the fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression. So I think if there is any defamatory post on social media, that should be for the court to decide. If I think I am being defamed, I'll always have that option to file a case before the court, and then the court can decide what is defamatory, what is not defamatory. So that is my entire take on this.
Yeah, you very well said that facts can be twisted by the lawyers and anything can be termed as defamatory or non-defamatory. But
because the line between defamation and criticism, that should be decided by the court. That should not be decided by the executive.
Right. So just a question came to my mind. Do you think personal attacks on politicians or celebrities or public figures, it should account to defamation?
Personal attacks, I don't think that that is defamation. If I do something, you always have the option to criticize what I'm doing. That is your fundamental right.
Right.
I can get embarrassed by that, but that is not defamation. You always have the right. But if you are saying something which is against the written law of this land, which is against which is against the general recognized principle of law of torts of defamation, then I think you have a case. But just criticizing what I'm saying or opposing what I'm saying, that is your fundamental right. You can exercise that.
Right, right, right. We'll have a talk on this in the end when we'll have our impromptu session. So anyway, we recently saw that from many accounts, many people made a similar kind of post, but only few accounts got suspended. So what is your say on account suspension? Should it be equal for all, or should the elites be given privilege on the basis of their number of followers?
I get your point, Aryaman. If we see, then a lot of these social media account suspension. Now, first of all, the first question when we talk about social media account suspension is that whether social media, whether it is Facebook, Twitter, or any other social media, whether that is a state. Because if it is a state, then it cannot deny me my privacy rights or my fundamental rights. If it is not a state, then I don't have any remedy against that. Now, I think that if you see all these social media platforms, these basically are acting as the main platform for exchange of ideas, not even in India, throughout the world. They are therefore doing a public function. When they are doing a public function, I think there is no doubt that they can be termed as a state and they should be made liable for violating anyone's fundamental right. Now, coming to the point that why someone's particular account is suspended and some other person's account is not being suspended. That clearly comes to the fact that we don't have an independent authority to decide which account should be suspended, which account should not be suspended. Now, if I am someone who is close to the authority which is ruling, then obviously any company will refrain from suspending my account. But if I'm in the opposition, then maybe that the authority which is ruling, that might dictate dictate to the company that you suspend his account. So since there is a lack of independent judicial body on this, therefore such kind of discrepancies appear. I think the best solution to this problem would be to coming up with an independent judicial body to decide social media suspensions of all accounts. What this will do is that whether it is Twitter suspension, WhatsApp suspension, Instagram suspension, that should go. Now, these days, for example, if your Twitter account is suspended, that goes to Twitter. Twitter decides whether it is with their policy or not with their policy. So a private company cannot decide my fundamental rights. That should be done by an independent judicial body. If you make this independent judicial body, and that independent judicial body should be allowed to act at an email. It should not involve the cumbersome procedure which is there in courts. I should be allowed to write an email that I think my account is suspended because of expressing my opinion for these reasons. Kindly look into the matter. That should justify that petition. If that goes to the independent legal body, it should give decision in 24 hours. Such kind of a body is required if we effectively want to protect our fundamental right to freedom of speech and expression. Otherwise, all this becomes a nullity, because Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all these social media platforms, these are the platforms where world politics is played these days. Hence, this is state and fundamental rights of everyone should be protected there. Now, coming to an example. Recently, not recently, I think it's been a few years now, senior advocate Sanjay Hegde's Twitter account was suspended. He challenged his suspension before the suspension of the Twitter account before the Delhi High Court, and he has raised this argument that Twitter is state and it should give fundamental rights. That matter is currently pending before the Delhi High Court. He even asked for an early hearing few months back, but that was also denied because the court commented that you can live without Twitter for a few days. I think some such kind of a comment was made. So that is the thing. That matter is pending. Let's see what happens there.
So you said there should be an independent authority. So do you think that Twitter or Facebook, these are global chains, These are global companies. They have their users across the world. So having an independent judiciary body or any authority in a specific country, it will alter the rights and policies for people of different countries. Like people of different countries will have different rules and laws to be governed by. Then do you think Twitter or Facebook or any other social media app, they may face some issues in managing it? Like then a person of some other country may challenge it on the basis that that person of that country made such and such comment and his account is active and mine is suspended. So what is you say
I
on that?
Yeah, a very good point, Aryaman. What I would like to say is that we can take a hypothetical. For example, if my account is suspended, I am in India, I am bound by Indian law. I have been given rights to say whatever I want to say by the Indian Constitution. And if the Parliament comes up with an independent body and Twitter or any other company wants to do business in India, they are bound by that law. So if such kind of a body is created, every company is bound to follow that, and it will in the end protect rights given to me by the Indian Constitution. So I am not concerned whether that right is being given, whether that right is recognized in any Middle Eastern country or any European country. I'm not concerned about that. I have been given the right to say whatever I want to say by the Indian Constitution, and I think that should be protected by this independent judicial body. And as I have already stated, that you can, even if there is the lack of this independent judicial body, you can anyways approach the Delhi High Court. Delhi High Court has already, Delhi High Court or any other High Court or any other constitutional court, like the Delhi High Court has already issued notice in such kind of a matter. But the problem which arises is that not everyone can approach court of laws. Approaching court of laws takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money. It takes lakhs of rupees to file a writ petition before these constitutional courts. I'm talking about this independent judicial body so that it reduces the cost of litigation. Otherwise, if for example, if your Twitter account is suspended, you always have the right to approach the Delhi High Court or the High Court wherever you are living, or even the Supreme Court if this is a grave matter of public importance. That is the point which I want to make.
So do you think that in spite of making an authority in a country, should Twitter or Facebook or other social media platforms, they form a global committee where academicians or jurists from all the countries, they make them apart and then they sit down and make a policy that is in accordance with the laws of all the countries that Twitter or Facebook is in?
Yeah, good question, Aryaman. I think that is a policy issue. If they come up with such kind of an authority, then we will have to see whether that authority is independent or not. But the point which I'm trying to make is that if the government comes up with an authority, and then they are bound to follow it. They don't have an option.
Right. So, right, you were talking in Indian context. I was just trying to go global, but yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and we are clear on both the points. So at a point you said that if you are a powerful person, you are with that committee, then Twitter will abstain from suspending your account. So do you think these days the political parties, they are misusing the social media platforms to target each other, and especially the ones that are in power, they misuse it? They misuse it more than the ones that are sitting in the opposition.
I think the main essence of any democracy lies in a debate. And Twitter, Instagram, any other platform or any other social media platform is a good place where you can have a healthy debate. I think it should be allowed, but the problem lies in account suspension. If account suspension and also retaliation. For example, if someone says something against, if some common man says something against any powerful person, then he is slapped with FIRs. He is slapped. He is arrested. He has to stay in jails, and after some time, after a lot of time, he gets bail. He has to spend a lot of money. So the problem is not with politicians debating. They have the right, and not even politician. Every person has the right to debate. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That is a good medium, good place to debate. They should be allowed to do that, but no one should be retaliated against for expressing his opinion. That is the point which I am making. And I think the court should be sympathetic whenever they see such kind of cases, because if someone is being retaliated against and he for expressing his freedom of speech and expression, and he is lying in jail for maybe 1 month, 2 months, or even 2 days, that has such high costs. I think court should look at such matters with with a kind heart and should expressly treat such kind of cases. Because if you see, if an FIR is filed against you, only the High Court has power to quash it. So if a false FIR is being filed against you, then you have to get a lawyer. You have to pay him his fees. It takes time for a petition to get drafted. It goes to the court. It is presented there. Then there are delay tactics played over here. Getting bail is not easy. So you are still in jail. Your matter is going, and you are in jail for doing nothing. So I think that is the main issue in the question which you have raised.
Right. You very well pointed out the very basis of democracy, that is debating or dissent, I'd say. Here I'd like to say that Voltaire once said that I may disagree to what you say, but I'll defend till my death your right to say it. So I think that very value, it should be preserved in a democracy.
Definitely. And if I am being retaliated against about what I'm saying, then that should not be done in a democracy, because democracy lies in debate.
Right. Then you'll always fear that I'll be retaliated, or should I express myself fully? And I think it's a violation of your freedom to express your opinions also.
Without any doubt, yes.
Yeah. So moving on, these days we are seeing that there are a lot of fake accounts being made on social media. So despite talking about the fake accounts, I'd like to ask you about the minors, who misrepresent their ages and enter into these restrictive platforms. So what is your say on that, and how do you think should it be stopped or prevented or restricted?
I think in the greater good of the whole country, age restrictions on social media should be strictly enforced. Now there is a reason why minors are not legally able to do many things without supervision. The reason behind that is that when you are a child, when any person is a child, his morals, his ethics, they are not developed. He does not know what is right, what is wrong. If you go to social media, there are all kind of things. If your morals are not developed, you don't know what is right, what is wrong. You might go on the wrong direction. Just to stop that, I think age restrictions should be enforced strictly, and that can easily be done. For example, whenever you make Facebook or any social media account, they can just ask for your proof of age. You upload that, they just scrutinize it, and then only you are allowed access to your account. So I think that would be a better idea. Otherwise, losing one child and letting him go to the wrong path, I think huge costs is involved. We cannot do that.
Right. So now all that needed is verification, is just that six-digit code that is sent to your email, which can be created any which ways. So you talked about verifying age by uploading some document, but previously we spoke about the data breach that is being happening. WhatsApp is sharing things, Facebook is sharing things. So do you think uploading our government issued ID cards or these credentials on social media will lead to a breach of privacy? Will
Yeah,
it
I
be
think
a threat?
obviously, given the fact that there have been so many data breaches in the past, it is not safe to give your government identification card to any of these website. But I think if you see age, then maybe you can give your 10th class 10th mark sheet. You can give your date of birth certificate, which doesn't have that much of implications in terms of privacy. But if you, for example, give Aadhaar is linked with every government service. If if there is a data breach, then your Aadhaar number is breached, then all of that data can be compromised. It's better to give your 10th class mark sheet or your date of birth certificate. Something like that can be given.
Right. So Abhishek, throughout this discussion, you pressed a lot on the need of an independent judicial authority or a body to govern these privacy laws and all these things. So I'd like to ask you a question from your personal insight. What do you think? What is your say on a well-structured IT law in India? And should it cover the societal aspects of the country also?
Yes, Aryaman, definitely. I think that there should be a IT law in basically a data protection law in India. But before coming to the need of that law, we should see that what are the existing procedures? Are they sufficient? Do we need more? Data protection in India is governed by the IT Act, which was passed into the year 2000. Now, let me tell you one thing. If you see section 70B of that act, then it says for the provides for the establishment of the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team. Now, this committee has, this response team has the power to analyze cyber incidents and forecast alerts for cybersecurity. So the problem is not that we don't have laws, we don't have power to do something into this issue. We are not enforcing these laws. If you see that there is a federal, there's a union agency, the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, which has been given the power to forecast such kind of cyber alerts. But I don't think you have ever received any alert from them, or you have ever, or any common man doesn't even should. I don't think any common man doesn't even know that there is something like the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team. Now, recently there was even a petition filed before the Delhi High Court on 13th August before Justice Reghapalli to seek for this CERT-led investigation into data breaches which happened at Domino's Big Basket. So the point which I'm trying to make is that even if you come with 1 law, 2 law, 3 law, 10 laws, until and unless you effectively execute these laws, then only there's some benefit in coming up with these laws. Otherwise, it's an empty procedure. If, for example, you make the Indian Computer Emergency Response Team, it doesn't work to the level it should work, then what? Then the law is not to be blamed. The blame goes on the execution of that laws, and execution is entirely in hands of the executive. Now, until and unless the executive believes that the data of the citizens of my country is important and it should not be compromised in any way, until and unless they realize that and work towards that, nothing will happen. Even if we come up with a well-protected act like the European Union law, which I was talking about, still until and unless there should be execution of these laws. And coming to one point, one point is that these laws should include one thing which is missing right now is the right to be forgotten, which I think forms an essential part of right to privacy. Few days back, Justice Pratibha M. Singh of the Delhi High Court, she recognized the right to be forgotten, and she ordered India Qanoon and other websites to remove the record of an American citizen who was acquitted in a criminal proceeding. Now, that right should expressly be recognized in the CRPC or maybe in some other law, and the magistrate or the session judge should be given power to, when he acquits someone, in that acquittal judgment, he should basically direct these websites and websites to remove data of the person who is being acquitted. Because if that his data is not being removed from there, then there is always a black mark on his name for something which he has not even done. So I think data protection law and even the criminal law should include this aspect. And also, for example, this Indian Computer Emergency Response Team or the new data protection law, whatever, they should be given the power to fine. And the fine should be somewhat similar to what the European Union has. It should be large scale. And there should be a group of experts who should systematically, technocrats who should systematically evaluate the privacy policy, technocrats and also lawyers who should evaluate each and everything, privacy policy of every company who is asking for data, and then they should give them guidelines. They should be given the power to fine. Then only I think privacy laws and freedom of speech and expression and the constitution can be enforced. Otherwise, this remains a nullity.
Right. So Abhishek, you shed a lot of light on legal aspects of things. Now let's put the legal aspect aside. We have spoken a lot on it. I'd like to know your personal view and your view as a human being on social media posts sharing the pictures of dead bodies, the pictures of last rites, or the pictures of rape victims. What do you think? How does it affect the family of that person? And since you talked about the right to be forgotten, right of being forgotten, so So we all know that there's a Bollywood actor. Let's name him. It's Sanjay Dutt. So he has been held in some case and then he got acquitted, but still people call him terrorist even after getting acquitted from the Supreme Court of India. So do you think it always leaves a black mark on someone and their family and how people view them, how people make an image of them? So do you think that Indian society should evolve and look at both sides before reaching to a judgment, to a conclusion about someone? Because after that, no judgment, no verdict, no acquittal is going to change what they think about that person. So what is to
Definitely,
say on?
definitely, Aryaman. So what you are basically talking about is, in our country, the main problem is that media trials and the perception which is being made of a particular person who may be a criminal, who might not be a criminal. It takes time to decide whether someone is a criminal. It takes years for the judiciary to decide what is a criminal, who is a criminal, what is a crime. But it takes a second for any person to come to the conclusion that a particular person has committed a crime. I think this is a systematic problem. And the basis of that problem is that our judicial system is slow for the common man. It takes time. It takes time to get justice in India and in a lot of countries in the world. But because of that time, perception which is created by because of the time taken by judiciary, perception which is created by people, media, that spreads fast, and that basically defames a person. We have seen a lot of these cases in which a person, not naming anyone, he was declared as a terrorist or he was declared as having done something very wrong, and in the end, after years, he is acquitted by the Supreme Court. Now the question arises, who will compensate him for his dignity? Since we are recognizing right to dignity, then who will compensate him for his dignity, for his time which he has lost? And I think there is no answer to this until unless we have some judicial reforms at the larger level. That is a bigger question than what we are talking about, and that is a separate question. But until and unless we get large-scale judicial reforms, give timely justice, these things are bound to happen, and it is very unfortunate. But still, I don't think that how we can come out of it until and unless justice is given fast.
Right, rightly pointed out about the right of dignity that he has lost over the years. So here I like to say something. We all know former Indian captain Mohammad Azharuddin. He was banned just before he was going to play his 100th test, and for some 10, 12 years he was being stamped as someone who fixed matches or something. Lately he got acquitted, but that stamp remained with him for a period of more than a decade, and he could not fulfill his dream of playing the 100th test for India. So yeah, these things affect people in bad way, and I agree with you that media trials should be stopped, and people should be more cautious before forming a perception about someone or reaching to a conclusion about someone.
And
So
if you
yeah,
see the practical aspect, Aryaman, then the minimum wage in US, if I just talk about the economics of this aspect, then the minimum wage of US is $8 for 1 hour. So if you do 1 hour work, then you get $8. And there is, I have not seen a lot of unemployment here. So if you work 10 hours in one day, you get $80. You make $80 in one day. That I'm simply talking about labor jobs. This is the federal standard, and states have basically increased that. For example, I live in Pennsylvania, so here it's people generally get $11 working for 1 hour, $10 to $11 labor jobs. I compare that with India, and when I turned it down, the minimum wage given by government, if we convert it into dollars, it is $63 for 1 month. So on one hand, here you are making $80, for example, in one day. In India, you are making $63 for the whole month. Now, if a common man, the common man is poor, we should not forget that. Common man is not privileged enough to afford legal service. A person who is just making $63, for example, how can he afford a lawyer? How can he get the power to come out to challenge what is happening to him? He is oppressed. he is poor, he's socially downtrodden. So it is very difficult for him to come out of the legal process. And he's being retaliated against. So all of this is, he's basically trapped in the system. He cannot come outside, and therefore all these things happens. You are talking about politicians or maybe film stars who are being jailed for some false cases. But I will say that even they at least have the power, they have the resources to come out of it. Common man does not even have that. So it is double difficult for him.
Right. Very smartly, what is the topic of economics also. So I think here it comes to an end, and I think it will be a great lesson for our listeners also. We thank you for making time for us, and we look to host you in future also. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Aryaman. It was pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much.